for all life. We invite you to join the movement and co-create this vision with us. Faced with pervasive, serious crises everywhere, people are awakening and seeking a more harmonious and compassionate world, but without a structure to connect to others, grow strong, and take charge of transforming our planet. Many are unsure how to proceed. That's where the Charter excels. The Charter for Compassion offers a global structure so that people, organizations, and cities can become visible to each other and make critical connections. These connections happen at several levels. The Charter connects individuals to cutting-edge courses that cultivate empathy and core human values. The Charter connects schools to compassionate learning programs that hundreds of schools and universities are using. Because of the Charter's connections, 22,000 preschoolers in Monterrey, Mexico, are learning about compassion, kindness, and empathy through Think Equal lessons. But the Charter is also helping to spread Think Equal in social, emotional, and ethical learning in other countries. The Charter connects cities to other cities that have pledged to focus on open dialogue, understanding, and inclusion. More than 400 communities in 54 countries want to increase compassion locally, and people at the grassroots level are working on innovative initiatives that address local needs. Let's look at a few examples. Compassionate Pune in India is connecting local farmers growing organic produce to markets that pay them a fair price. Compassionate Pakistan is creating women empowerment zones for skill building. In Belfast, Northern Ireland, volunteers are hosting compassionate cafes to heal political and religious divides. In San Pedro, Mexico, Las Madrinas, the godmothers, are rebuilding lives one roof at a time. In Las Vegas, Nevada, and 13 other states, 160,000 students are learning science, nutrition, and conservation in hands-on school gardens supported by Green Our Planet and community partners. In our role as a global connector, the Charter brings together thousands of partners, supporting organizations and people worldwide so we can learn from each other, share best practices, and co-create solutions for the peaceful and compassionate world that we all desire. The Charter for Compassion is sparking a global movement and becoming a powerful engine for planetary transformation. Join us. Compassion is an urgent call to action. Investing in compassion is investing in a better future for ourselves and our next generations. At this critical time in humanity's evolution, please support the Charter's global movement to co-create a world that works for everyone.
Okay. Did everyone hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I realized that I didn't put on the enhancer that allows it to magnify a little bit better. So that I think that's a pretty reasonable overview of what's happening in a few select places. It's very interesting because there are an awful lot of communities that are interested. They get the idea that they want to create an initiative, but usually when they begin to formulate a team sometimes, that's where it stops. So it begins with one person, maybe that one person talking and sharing with another person what they think they'd like to do. And then it seems oftentimes that it doesn't move beyond that original notion that people have. However, obviously it has in many of our communities, but it's really important to just get a group of like-minded people together before you begin to diversify the group that you're bringing together. And you have to do that diversification really as soon as you can. But I think, forming a nucleus first is really important. So I'm going to stop there and just see if anyone has any reactions or if you've done any thinking, and we'll just move on from there and see the next steps. I know, Terry, you've thought about this a lot because Compassionate Australia does a lot of things, but
Mm,
it doesn't necessarily specialize in doing compassionate cities. Uh,
mm, mm. I'd be interested to hear from Jeanette and Cass because I've obviously got things I can share and have shared in the past.
Mm. Well, thanks, Terry. I'm a newbie to this whole concept, and the reason I've joined is uh, I'm curious actually to build skills within our restorative justice group here on the coast. That would be my community or my nucleus, and in restorative justice, of course, we're charged with dealing with compassion to those people that we serve in our community justice forums or in our peacekeeping dialogues. But I must admit that we would benefit from understanding more deeply just ourselves what a compassionate engagement with each other would be. And so I'm starting at the very rock bottom to learn more about how to be compassionate myself and to share that learning to those around me that are interested.
yeah, thank you.
Sorry
Thank
to
you
be
for
such
that.
sorry to be such a newbie.
No, not at all. Not at all. And Cass, what maybe it's a more basic question. What attracted you to come and even sign up to find out a little bit more?
Um, so I'm with a group and we are new as well, and we're coming together creating a transformational council. And it is to move consciousness from where we are to living just what what we envision, or a beloved community, or and there's other organizations that are also working on this, such as yourself. And it's kind of like, how do we all move together? And um our organization is a little bit more about um like messaging or campaigns to really live our values, because it's like we're bringing interfaith, all the different faiths, we're bringing cultures together, justice communities and earth communities. And it's like all of the faith leaders that we're in contact with say, if only we would live the scriptures. And so it's kind of like we hold the values of compassion and all of it, but we don't live them. So we're trying to work out, okay, can we recognize when we're not in compassion or when we're not living the values through campaigns, and then move that into further actions like, coming together with communities or what you're doing. And so it's like we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We want to share like more campaigns and then partner with other groups that, we could say, okay, then join, you know, Charter for Compassion to put these values into like your organization, or, move it into the Girl Scouts, or so just seeing maybe if that's a possibility of how it would, could work.
Just responding to both Jeanette and to you, because I think that Jeanette's group, obviously dealing with restorative justice, is a little differently focused than yours, which I'm not sure that I totally understand, but it seems to be uh, both a interfaith group of people as well as a secular group of people. Uh, am I right in that?
Yeah, it's even though we're bringing faiths together, we're trying to move consciousness. Like I can remember 30 years ago how the different faiths stayed away from each other. Like, I can even remember, me growing up as a Christian, it's saying in the faith, if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to hell. And it's like, so we've, evolved, but what's our next step to evolve so that we're even working and taking the values that are most prominent and most, basic, and that we can say we're all living them as human beings and, a divine energy within us all. It doesn't matter what our, if you believe in Buddha or you believe in, so to take that and even cultures, how do we honor each culture, but still find that we're, common, and the beauty in us all, so that, yeah, we're just moving toward kind of like living interconnectedness rather than separation.
I think that at least in your case, Cass, I would recommend we have a course. It's called The Essence of Compassion, which like deals with a lot of what you're talking about, and it's very much a basis of exploring compassion through interfaith, through cultural traditions that are very global in nature, and also exploring compassion through the arts, in particular, as opposed to the sciences. Because we have another course, which is the Science of Compassion. Both of them are hybrid courses, meaning that they're self-directed. And if you come as an individual and you want to comment on the course, then we in turn will have a conversation with you. But if you wanted to take that course like with your group or few people, then what we can do is have you do the self-directed part, but then we can set up Zoom meetings so we can explore in conversation a lot of what you're talking about. And so that's one thing. And then the other thing for both you and Jeanette is that there's a course. It's not our course, however, we're helping to facilitate the course, and it is called Cognitive-Based Compassion Training. It was really devised and has continued to be researched at Emory University, and a lot of the finances for that course have been given to Emory through the Dalai Lama, because you might know that the Dalai Lama is really intrigued and believes very much in science and the science of compassion. And so Emory is one of the leading institutions that has done work on science in the field of compassion, and also responsible for C-learning, which you just saw referred to in that short video. And so we will be offering that course in the fall. Right now, we have experienced a pilot course. We have a number of people going through the training. And even all three of you who are on here might be interested in eventually becoming trainers of, we'll call it CBCT for short, Cognitive-Based Compassion Training. It's very scientific, but at the same time, it works on, the strong definition of the feeling of warmth of compassion that you have hopefully within yourself, and learning how to nurture that feeling so that you can move it outward from yourself to working with other people. And I'm taking the second part of the course right now, and we have a number of doctors who from Emory, but also from other hospitals around the world. My partners today were from Indonesia. It's a great, there's 37 of us who are involved in it, and people from Europe. And so you get a lot of different perspectives. And people coming. There are a number of people coming from expertise in restorative justice, a lot from the medical field, some from, I'm surprised that there aren't more, but some from education and other disciplines. So it's really a wonderful kind of experience. So something, to think about for the future. It's a huge commitment. I mean, I'm not lying. It's 10 weeks of training, a couple hours a week in terms of being on Zoom like this. And then, they say as much as 8 hours a week of study and then a practicum in addition. So it's serious business. But the thing is that once you go through the initial training, and if you choose to continue, then you yourself will be certified, and you can offer it locally, and you can help set up prices for what you would charge for doing it. The charter is really committed over the next number of years to get scholarship money to help people who are members of the Charter for Compassion to go through the training. And so right now, all of the people who we have 10 people going through the second round of training, and they all have full scholarships. And we hope to continue to try and get scholarship money for others, because we want to build cadres in different geographic areas like, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, United States, so that we really can turn to people in these various locations who would in turn be able to offer CBCT to their own affiliate organizations or to compassionate communities that might be in existence. So that's just something to think about. And it will, I see that, Merida has managed to put up links to the Essence of Compassion, the Science of Compassion, and CBCT. But, the intent of this particular course is not to try and sell you on coursework, but it just so happens that, as you were indicating, I think that, these would be of value and of interest to you. The other thing might just simply be going to the Charter for Compassion. I'm just thinking here out loud, because I've done in particular a lot of rewriting of material that's already on the website. So we'll be changing a lot of the things that are already there. But when you look at, about, what do you need to know about the Charter for Compassion? We have a whole section on mission and values, and values are so important. And you both expressed that in your conversation and sharing here. So you might just want to take a look at those and to see if those values resonate with your own interests. So Terry, it's now your turn. Or maybe I should ask.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't know. I was just going to ask if Jeanette or Cass had any questions. And then it's your turn.
Great. Over, Terry.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, we've shared some of this journey in Australia with Marilyn and the team, and we're going through another kind of reflective process at the moment as our leadership changes. Dr. Lynn Reeder, who was leading our work in Australia, has retired, and I've taken over that role, and we're taking a moment to kind of reflect on, what next for the Charter for Compassion in Australia. I think, as Marilyn said, we kind of set out with the vision of growing compassionate cities, and the city that I was a part of, the Gold Coast City, is the 7th largest city in Australia, and a very rapidly growing, energetic kind of city. And we had the mayor sign the Charter for Compassion and a unanimous decision of the City Council back in 2018, prior to the Commonwealth Games, which were held in Australia in the Gold Coast in 2019. We had a very good counsellor, Councillor Glenn Tozer, who was really the compassion ambassador on the council, and he forged very good links between the council and our group, Compassionate Gold Coast. However, there wasn't much real buy-in, and there was politics really between the councillors and the mayor. And as a result, we haven't really been very successful in getting much traction, other than when I was funded by a philanthropic gift for a couple of years, which meant that I was able to be the kind of human face of the Charter for Compassion on the Gold Coast. Having said that, Dr. Lynn Reader initiated a group in Ballarat called Compassionate Ballarat, a regional city in Victoria, where Melbourne is the capital. And they have done amazing work in terms of integration with the council and other kind of services, including the police service and local faith groups and local peace groups, and with the health service. And Compassionate Ballarat continues to be sort of the flagship of the community work that we do in Australia. And Lynn Reader spoke at the recent Compassion Action Conference about one of their projects, which is interestingly called the Seeds of Compassion, where they work with school children and others to share their aspirations. One of the things we're thinking about in Australia is exactly this. How do we connect people like Jeanette and Cass, who have shown an interest in the Charter for Compassion? What are the pathways to supporting them? And as Marilyn said, the two sort of foci of the Charter's work is, promoting compassionate action and also education around compassion. So we have been exploring some of the compassion training that's available, including, of course, the Essence and the Science of Compassion, which is on the Charter website. Previously involved in compassion integrity training and interested in what's coming up with compassion-based mindfulness training, but also looking at other training that's offered with the Global Compassion Coalition and other kind of pathways, because we see that different people join the compassion with different, emphasis or different interest. So people that are perhaps come from a therapeutic background, psychologists and counsellors and people sort of working in group work, that sort of high level training like compassion-based mindfulness therapy, getting credentials in that and supporting groups is really helpful. But then there are other people that are just getting interested in how they could do compassionate initiatives on the ground, and perhaps something more simple, either self-directed learning as on the Charter website, or other programs might be helpful, and actually how to facilitate growing a team and developing a bit of a movement. So we're right in the midst of kind of reflecting on those things at the moment, but I think probably at a continental sense, because we have a small population, about 26 million people over a huge continent, and our aspiration is to encourage a continent for compassion. We're really kind of wondering whether the process is more about identifying the compassionate things that are already happening, honouring those, as Marilyn said last week, when the Christchurch mosque and the earthquake were on in Christchurch, the Charter took the initiative to recognise the city as a compassionate city. We're actually wondering whether there is real value in us in identifying all the compassionate things happening across the continent, acknowledging those, saying that they are involved in the work of compassion, which is not a religious movement, although the Golden Rule is at the centre of most faith traditions, as you said, Cass. But the compassion science tells us that compassion is a human thing, to be human. to be truly human is to be compassionate. And sometimes there are blockages to that compassion that we need to identify in ourselves or in our communities that need to be addressed. But how do we do those things? One of my previous appointments was as a tourism chaplain in the Whitsundays. And I wasn't at all aware, but I saw just through a friendship on the Facebook post yesterday that a group of women on Hamilton Island were celebrating 10 years of making birthing kits for the Birthing Kit Foundation of Australia, which supports women in Africa and other places. And to celebrate their 10th anniversary of making these birthing kits, they made 600 birthing kits in one day. Now, that's just an indication that there are so many amazing, compassionate things happening, even within our own circle of friendships and networks of community that we don't know about, that if we can just share those stories and promote them or link people that are doing similar things, the global network of the charter can be really valuable. So one of the things I think that video highlighted and it didn't mention specifically is the, what's it called, Marilyn? The co-creators global map.
Oh, the map, yeah, which we're rethinking.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Well,
But it's really a fantastic thing. So if, you're in Detroit, for instance, Cass, and you're interested in interfaith, you can put that on the map and you might find that there's, an interfaith group on the Gold Coast, for instance, that are doing similar things or experiencing similar issues. So this weekend, I'm going down to, I think, the 3rd Interfaith Harmony Music Festival on the Gold Coast. It's really exciting to be a part of those events, but often the connection with people doing the same thing in other parts of the world can be supportive and inspirational in other ways.
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, that is so needed. Not only what people are doing around the world similar, but like all the people within your area. Like, let's start to collaborate and co-create more than, try to doing it all ourselves. Yeah, thank you.
Just kind of reflections on what Terry was saying is that one of the things that we have is something called the Wisdom Book, the Grassroots Wisdom Book. So now Terry has an assignment, and that assignment is he has to write up about the women who celebrated their anniversary and what they're doing. And let's get that in the Wisdom Book. So, and I think maybe that will give you the link to the Wisdom Book. We have a number of chapters in the Wisdom Book. And what we try and do is applaud people who are doing these kinds of things so that others in local communities can take those ideas and replicate them in their community. Very short, kind of little scenarios, but there's a link that leads you to the bigger project. So that is one thing that I think. Another thing, which is really something that's just germinating because of the 2-day conference that we had. Part of that conference was a networking tool that was available. And over the last week since the conference, in talking with people, so many of them have remarked about how wonderful it was to go into that networking place during the conference and to find people from other parts of the world. And so we were saying, well, we've paid for the platform, so maybe what we should do is we should have maybe, for a couple, maybe one time at least, or a couple times before our contract with the company runs out, that we offer this networking opportunity where, there's not any panels, there's not any, coursework or anything. It's just an opportunity for people to come in, say who they are, put their name up, and then have that so that others can take a look. And then to a certain extent, it's compassion dating. So that you're
speed dating with compassion.
So that you can really network. I was telling a group this morning in a meeting that I first became aware of, how people were interested in it with a person who's from the International Rotary. He's about 82 years old or so. And he went to the conference, he went to a number of things, and he said, the best part was I met somebody from Papua New Guinea. I said, really? And because I didn't think we had anyone who gave a presentation. He said, I met them in that dating network that you set up. And so, and I've heard, other people say that that was the best part for them. And so I think that, just that human contact is so important to people. So can I share, and Terry, thank you, because I mean that I know you have done a lot of thinking around this, and here's a kind of a journey moving forward from where we started last week, and that's looking at a collective impact approach. That as you formulate this team, you're not going to, and it doesn't matter if it's like an organization that's dealing with restorative justice or a wellness group. So there's all kinds of topics within both of those. So, what is it that you want to work on? Do you want to bring restorative practices into the community? Do you want to deal with restorative practices with juvenile justice? Do you want to deal with mediation in restorative justice? Do you want to have a platform for potential mediators or for lawyers? I mean, just any one of these things is, really forcing us to ask all kinds of questions about our focus, so that, like with CAS, the same thing. I mean, your umbrella is so big of what you want to do. How are you going to effectively do that? How is your agenda going to come forth? And actually, it's like, you have to spend a lot of time asking questions. And I know in a previous group, when I gave this presentation, it's almost like learning long division, getting to the common denominator, how one question leads to another, how that question makes us ask additional questions, until we can really focus on what is it that we want to do. And maybe it's not only one thing, maybe it's 2 or 3 things, which means that you might need an umbrella team that overlooks and coordinates your work, but at the same time, because you might have 3 different areas that you're focusing on, that you're going to need, a team in each one of those in order to be successful. So, that's part of this collective impact. And then how is it that you know that you're going to be making a difference? And that's another area that you want to explore. Is it going to be solely by numbers? Is it going to, because, you effectively have stopped kids being expelled from school, for example, and so that's a numbers category. But are there stories that are attached? Do those stories reflect the next move of how your common agenda is going to be changed? So that's an important thing. And then, how do you do these reinforcing activities? Is it just, coming together and making an announcement, which, is kind of part of the next 2 items there, that you have to continually communicate what you're trying to do and invite other people into your circle. And then you have to really determine what's the backbone support of what you're doing. Oftentimes, and this has happened so much, not necessarily with trying to bring compassion within organizations, but within compassionate communities, that we think that we need to start at the very top and get the local government involved so that they'll, declare that this is a compassionate community. It doesn't help, because you need to really start from the ground up, because those politicians, for example, are going to leave. They're going to not be reelected. they're going to move on, or they're going to become very possibly disinterested. But if you have a strong core of a compassionate team, then that's what keeps things going. And like right now, one of our strongest compassionate cities is in Texas, San Antonio. The mayor ends his term in just a couple days. He has been incredible to the charter internationally. He's been a real force nationally within the United States, speaking out for compassion and for his local community. And so now it's, either if we didn't have a strong, compassionate grassroots group of people in San Antonio who are wrestling with the question, along with the current mayor, of how are we going to keep compassion alive, because this next mayor might not buy into compassion the way that we have. Because when you buy into compassion, you buy into policy change. One of the things that Compassionate San Antonio has is that whenever they come up with a new policy, a new bill, a new resolution, they weigh it against compassion. And so, this is serious business when you get a city involved. And in order to keep it moving, you really have to have a strong team. I can't emphasize that enough. Once you get that strong team, then you have to really, work on committing to holding true to your focus, or reevaluating what's going on, because that focus might change slightly. But the important thing is that you're dealing with an action plan that could really, any action plan needs to be revisited, it needs to be critiqued, and it's your team that's going to be really the focal point of keeping this all alive. So, what are the questions that you need to explore? And that's where we are with probably Jeanette. Like, what questions do you need if you're going to move forward with this? And Cass, as well as Terry. Terry, you introduced something that's really huge. Here comes Paul, whoever Paul might be. Because of the fact that, if you're going to think, well, we're going to make a compassionate continent, what does that mean to have a compassionate continent? Does it mean, that we're going to zero in on healthcare? Are we going to do a compassionate continent through promoting the notion of compassion through the arts? So again, all of those kinds of questions need to be explored and answered. Paul, welcome. We're now about almost an hour into what we're doing. So I think maybe it would be great if you could introduce yourself and where you're from, and then take a serious look at what's in the chat. And hopefully we'll be able to send a summation of what we've done next week, and some links to explore further some of the conversation. So, hi, Paul. There you go. Can you turn on your mic?
Is that working? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, Paul, I'm from Brisbane in Australia.
Okay. Paul,
Yeah.
meet Terry. Do you know one another?
No.
I'm not sure, Paul. I'm from the Gold Coast and currently living in Scarborough.
Oh, okay. You're living in where, sorry?
Scarborough. Redcliffe.
Oh, Redcliffe. Oh, Scarborough. Yes. Okay. Yeah, no, you're not far from me at all, actually. Yeah, I
Where
live
are
in
you?
Ball Hill. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that Terry will be able to invite you to another discussion that's relative to the work that Compassionate Australia is doing. And so one of the things, Paul, that we've just been talking about is how is it that we begin to create a grassroots team, and how is it that that team of people who are interested in the notion of compassion, how is it that they're going to put it into action? And I think a big area is asking many questions. So I'm just kind of wondering at this point, Paul, I feel badly that you're kind of a little bit out of the conversation because you haven't been a part of it. But if you wouldn't mind hanging in there with us, and just asking all three of the others who are here, like where's your thinking at this point? Where do you envision your next step? Or if there is a next step, maybe we've frightened you to death.
No, I don't know that I guess I've been heading in various directions and come to a lot of roadblocks. But I have a heart for it. So I guess I wanted to know more, I guess, was really where I was at. I've gotten into writing. I don't write as a vocation, but it's something I love doing, and looking at different inspirational ideas to lift people up, especially in mental health. It's something that I've been through myself, so it's an area that I'm very, very passionate about. Years ago, I did a course I was a personal trainer, so I've always been interested in health and wellness. That's been my modus operandi, I suppose. That's the way I love to live, is a healthy lifestyle. So I see the benefits of that. But I have a Philippine family here in Australia. I've certainly seen the benefits of, I guess, the idea of a hand up, not a hand out. So I always think that's a great idea to try to get behind how we can do that. I know there's very generalized ideas, but
Here's another thing I'm thinking as I'm listening to you, but also having had now the experience of listening specifically, I think, to Jeanette and Cass. And Terry probably already knows this, but one of the things is that we have groups, and in the past we've called them sectors, and now we're moving towards looking at pillars that really hold the Charter for Compassion up in terms of its operation. And welcome, Lacey, as well. And I just explained to Paul that we started an hour ago, so we're well into this. So I hope you can bear with us, and we'll get notes to you so that you know what we've talked about during last week's session, this session. But we have a really excellent healthcare group that meets at an ungodly hour for you. However, I've been talking with them to see if we could move that out. It's called Kitchen Chat, and we come together the first Friday of the month and I'm not going to give you the time. But the idea is that anyone who's interested in health just is welcome to come. And we have a core group of people who are there. And we have doctors from Mayo Clinic. We have end-of-life doulas. We have individuals who are first responders. We have people who are from both the UK and the United States who are into healthcare policy. And we just let the conversation be. And we've been doing this now for over a year. It's an incredible people, and they're always welcoming new people. And so that might be an area that you're really interested in. And then the same thing, Jeanette, we have a social justice and integrity group that also includes issues around restorative justice. They meet a little differently. They have been doing this now for over a year as well. They meet every single Friday morning, and at Pacific time is 8 o'clock. And again, it's a varied group of people. There are some people who are really interested in restorative justice, but the other thing is that we can really put you in touch with some of our compassionate cities that are really doing restorative justice work, both at the governmental level as well as in education. And I never ask you, for example, what are some of the areas of interest in restorative justice practices. And Cass, same thing. We have another group, which is in spirituality. And that is also a group that comes from the interfaith community. They meet twice a month. So you might be interested in joining with them. And it's a great opportunity in all of these different things to meet new people, to see what's happening. And oftentimes, there's a topic-centered piece. One of the things that both social justice and the spirituality group is doing right now is going through a brand new course that we've put together called On Board Training for the Charter for Compassion, to really understand the depth of the Charter, to understand historically where we've been, but more importantly, what is the philosophy and the points of values and mission of the Charter related to our 7 pillars, and which are wisdom, education and wisdom, and gratitude in the arts and creativity, innovation, so that environmental stewardship and responsibility, so that we eventually will have all of these groups operating as small teams, so that basically we don't know what that means. We're not looking for these groups to create programs for the Charter as much as to explore ideas that they can share, kind of what we've talked about in terms of the grassroots wisdom, and how we might bring that forward, so that, what we want is we want the world to be compassionate. And so we're kind of exploring, how do you do that? And it is through storytelling. And we talked about that last week. It's getting to know people. It's committing to really looking at how you can alleviate someone's pain and suffering, and how best to do that. And we're a new organization. We've only been around since 2009. And we have, we've made a mark, but we certainly want to do something that's huge. So just another reflection. Lacey, do you want to share a little bit about who you are and where you're from?
Sure. My name is Lacey, and I'm living in Las Vegas. I was in Seattle for 30 years with my husband and my child. And I was at the Seeds of Compassion in Seattle when Archbishop Tutu and the Dalai Lama were there. And I work for Gard Jameson's clinic that he's a board member of, Volunteers in Medicine of Southern Nevada. And I'm in philanthropy and culture manager. So culture meaning we really, it's a new position that I created to identify the compassion that we all bring and intentionally thread it through, the coworkers, the patients, the and into the community. And then besides that, I'm a ordained Buddhist nun in the Shinyo order. So I've been practicing that. I grew up in Japan. So while I was searching for my faith, I thought, perhaps it was Christianity, but I don't know. I kept getting pulled back into Buddhism. So I probably think that might have something to do with, the environment that I grew up in.
Great. What I mentioned about our kitchen chat healthcare group, I think you'd really enjoy being a part of that group. And maybe stop in next Friday. I think it's the first Friday of the month. So I'm pretty sure that Merida is looking for the link right now so that you can
Thank you.
capture it. It's at 8 o'clock Pacific time, and you're in Pacific time. So you've moved from one compassionate community to another one.
Yes.
Seattle, the very first,
Yep.
and Las Vegas certainly is
Yeah. And
vibrant compassionate community.
yeah. So anyway, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, great. And I do hope that you'll be able to join us next Friday. And Paul, I think we'd love for you to sign up. And then I have mentioned to the people, we have 2 coordinators in the group, that maybe we should move the time to about now for them to meet. We do have a lot of people who come from the UK, which makes it impossible. So maybe every other time that we meet, we could vary the clock because that world clock is not friendly to the whole global community. So we can try that.
That's a rather impossible mission, isn't it?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. So Terry, I'm wondering what you're thinking at this point. Well, I'm wondering also, since Jeanette, who might have just left us, and Cass are thinking as well.
You sent a lot of links, but and you'll send them out in email, but also, like you were just speaking about the spiritual chat. I don't know if one of these are that link.
I don't
On
think
Fridays, I think you were saying, and even the justice on Fridays as well.
Yeah, just the justice is on Friday. The spirituality is on Thursday.
Okay. Well, if you can send those links, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
We
I'll
will,
put them in.
yeah, so they'll be there, but we'll send them as well. We'll capture.
Just to be clear, Merida, is it the one link will take us to the different chats, or do we need a different link for each chat?
No, for the kitchen chat, for example, one of the things that we use on for a number of these chats, we use another platform called Sutra. So we have to invite you to the Sutra platform, which is not our website. It's a conversational platform. And so, we can certainly do that.
But that link, Nera, does that take us to all the various chats that Cass is asking, or just the health chat?
That's just
the health. The kitchen
Right.
chat is just the health chat. And
Yeah.
now I'm going to put in the Zoom links because you don't really require registration to the social justice and to the what we call RISE at the moment, the spirituality.
Okay, thank you.
Here's another thing that I want as a concept and idea to share with you, and that is, as you begin to create a plan for how you're going to bring compassion to the forefront of either your organization or, in the case of working in a compassionate community, to really think through in that action plan, what are the short-term goals and what are the long-term objectives that you have in mind? And those are so very, very important. And, what is it that you're expecting as an outcome? And maybe sometimes, I'll stop sharing there so that we can look at one another. Maybe the very fact that you start backwards is not bad. So that you want to say that, getting involved in compassion, the outcome that we'd like to have within our organization is this. And we found that we had this conversation yesterday with a whole other group of people, that many people who thought that they had, this is what I want to do in the short term, really were long-term objectives that they had. And so, a short-term objective is something that could be done really quickly. Like, for example, and Terry, you even brought it up. How do we celebrate and recognize people who are doing good work in various communities? So, who are those organizations? Who are those individuals that we should applaud? What can we learn from them? How can we celebrate them? So that that could be very short term. A long term piece might be, how is it that we could make certain that we have a big umbrella recognition of all compassionate organizations on the continent of Australia? How is it, another long-term objective might be, how is it that those organizations can collectively share with one another? How is it, another long-term one might be, how is it that an organization steps forward to mentor another organization that's just starting out, or an organization that might be having some difficulty, so that if you just try and think about those, they're quick recognitions, for example, might be short term. Recognizing a young student. Like, I remember I had a contract when I had a company with an indigenous, a tribal group in the state of Washington. And the Washington Medical Association wanted to get new blood going into medical schools. So their short-term goal was to recognize young indigenous people in communities where they were actually volunteering in hospitals, and so they had a recognition campaign, and then the idea was, in a longer term, that they would have a number of scholarships that they would be giving to indigenous youth, so for medical school. So just thinking about short and long-term goals, and love to work. I mean, if that's the direction like Compassionate Australia might be going in, as you as you plow the ground and think about what's your next steps, love to kind of explore some of that with you. So I'm wondering, any other questions at this point that you might have? Okay, I'm going to share another slide, and then that'll maybe generate some. We're priming the pump here. Let me share. Okay. Here's another thing about, as you, and I know that Compassionate Australia does a really good job of this, but you make a formal commitment about your project, and you make it also through the public, through social media, through different, maybe through different, not only social media, but through different organizations, like in your case, Cass, maybe through the different interfaith communities that might be a part of the group that is now in formation in Detroit. And so that you might move towards a proclamation or a resolution, but sharing that action plan and really getting people involved in that action plan is really so important. One of the things, and I think that, let me stop sharing because I don't think you wanted to see my internet wanderings, is that I lost my train of thought there for 1 second. No, I totally lost it. Can someone find it?
The commitment. I think you were talking about commitment.
Yeah.
And Terry's
group. Yeah, I think in terms of commitment, and like, for example, Compassionate Australia does this wonderful once a year dreaming, imagining a new Australia. That is a long-term commitment, I think. It's a program that very possibly committed to because you've been doing it for a number of years now. But how might you take that, an individual program that you have, and how can you make that be a program that is not a one-time a year program, but that it is something that permeates the, your action plan to bring compassion to various communities. And I know that one of the things that Compassion Australia has is that you work in education, you work in, in so many different fields. And do you want to keep doing that? Do you have a team of people in each of those areas? Or do you work for just creating this once a year, big production that you do? It's just, because the charter does that. We have our gala once a year. And, but, what we try, I hope to do is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to recognize in that gala each year people who are exemplar in their field so that others can learn about them. Then we try and integrate their work into the work that we're doing, so that last year's recipients for the Karen Armstrong Award were like Kailash Satyarthi, who won the Nobel Prize for trying to end child slavery. So next month, which is just around the corner, June 12th, he'll be giving a global read on his book, What Took You So Long? Kind of written from the eyes of children who were enslaved. And so if we take that notion of youth and empowering youth, we have a conference coming up in October with its geared towards youth. How is it that we make a bridge from Kailash last year receiving the Karen Armstrong Award to Kailash giving a global read to the kinds of things that we learned about empowering youth that have been incarcerated? How does it make its way into our October offering? How does that October offering and what Kailash is doing reflect what the youth that we're working with right now in a refugee camp in Uganda, where there are young people from 7 countries who basically are incarcerated as refugees and who are trying to build a compassionate community and learn about their struggles. So, not that it just, for us, it makes sense. Maybe not to the whole world it makes sense, but I think that, as you create your projects, it's like, how is it that you can draw those lines between your work? And I'm intrigued by, like Australia trying to say, we want to make compassion, the overriding theme in Australia. That's huge. Not impossible, because Paul has now joined your group.
And Paul, I've sent you in the chat my my email details if you want to reach out and connect locally. Yeah, look, I think one of the things that I've been reflecting on, Marilyn, as you talk, is something. My background was in the Christian tradition as well, and 15 or 20 years ago, the church growth movement was a big kind of focus. I remember traveling to the United States on, tours to see some of the big churches, Saddleback and Willow Creek and that sort of thing, and hear about the church growth movement and how to, facilitate. And one of the things that struck me is at the same time that you grow bigger, you have to grow smaller as well, because like a global network is really exciting to be a part of if you're traveling to other parts of the world and you want to find somebody in Japan or, you know, in Vancouver that shares your aspirations or are doing interesting things that you can visit. But also, with so much suffering in the world and so many great ideas, it can be a bit overwhelming as well to think, you know, what could I do in Gaza? You know, what could I do about homelessness in New York when we have homelessness in our own backyard? So I think part of the challenge for the Charter globally and for us nationally is how do you grow bigger and smaller at the same time? And I think those kitchen chat sort of meetings are really one good way to facilitate that. It's about brokering those connections and then letting those people kind of, you know, talk about what's of interest to them. I think the map of co-creators is really helpful. I think the wisdom book and those sorts of things are helpful because people can get aspirations, but then you almost need to trust the process after facilitating those things to allow people to do it. And the growth, even, you know, with the best planning and that sort of thing, the growth is invariably organic. It takes its own kind of, you know, this is why we call it the seeds of compassion, you know, because the way that it might, you know, take root in Las Vegas might be quite different to the way that it takes root in Bald Hills, for instance, Paul, or in, you know, Detroit in Michigan. And so there's sort of cultural translation that needs to happen. Some of the kind of meta themes, like the notion of our common humanity or golden rule or, you know, compassion science, they're kind of, you know, they resonate in all contexts, but, you know, the indigenous situations in different communities, the faith situations, like, I mean, the faith situation, interfaith situation in Jerusalem is very different to the interfaith, you know, situation in the Gold Coast. But the similarity is that, you know, out of sensitivity often to our Jewish friends and the whole distress about anti-Semitism, you know, we don't, you know, we feel hamstrung in terms of speaking out for the Palestinians, you know, and those sorts of things. So it's a challenge, I think, for a global organization and a sort of continental organization to grow big and small at the same time.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you know, one of our big values is trust. That you have to, you know, you have to learn to trust others, and you have to learn how to trust the process. And I think exactly what you're saying, Terry, is that you learn a lot in small group conversations, and it's really wonderful to, you know, to the fact that you don't necessarily, as you enter into a conversation with another person, that you don't need to find out what their religion is or what their ethnic background is, but the important thing is the depth of the questions and asking permission of other people to ask the questions. And I think that, you know, so much we have learned historically that, you know, people across the globe have the same needs. And, you know, people who are into anthropology, especially urban anthropology of late, you know, tell us that everyone has a need for a sense of security. Everyone has a need for knowing, as part of that sense of security. There was an incredible anthropologist, Cantrell, and he summarized this so well when he said that the majority of people that he spoke with were thing that they wanted a great deal was a sense of family, and that family did not have to be blood family, that they wanted to know where they were going to wake up the next day. Think about that. I mean, you know, kids in urban situations, people who might be houseless, people who are, you know, I mean, I think right now we have almost 20 million people who are moving about on the globe that don't have a permanent place to be. And, you know, how do you get to, you know, to get to those stories? Getting stories is so important.
And I think for me, that's the exciting thing about the work of the Charter, just thinking about some of the things that Cass shared earlier. You know, I've spent, perhaps like her, a lot of time working ecumenically within the Christian tradition, and then sort of interfaith-wise in terms of other traditions. However, even so, you have to spend a lot of time talking about kind of detail, you know, how is, you know, the Christian understanding of the afterlife different to Buddhist understanding, or whatever it may be. Whereas with the work of the Charter, because, you know, the compassion science stuff tells us that this is part of what it means to be human. So it is necessary to work, you know, in ecumenical and interfaith kind of situations, if that's, you know, where your compassionate action is, and how to bring, you know, the golden rule and the commonality into that. But, you know, the bigger, for me, the notion of compassion kind of transcends, you know, all of those kind of things. And then there's kind of the middle ground, I guess, where, you know, the notion of common humanity and understanding of our common humanity is really important, you know, in terms of a precursor to how, you know, compassion flows and how we express that compassion. But it can be contextualized in terms of healthcare, for instance. So, you know, Paul might be interested, you know, in the work of Dr. Debbie Ling, a social worker, you know, who's written her thesis about, you know, common humanity in healthcare, you know, and how that affects. So, you know, there are a whole lot of different entry and exit points, but I think compassion is a human a virtue, Cass, that kind of transcends the interfaith stuff. And so one of the advantages is that, you know, if you get lost in the minutiae of conversations about, you know, interfaith dialogue, to bring it to some of those meta themes like,
Well,
you know,
you're reminding me
really helpful.
some of the principles that come out of intercultural communication and neurolinguistic science. For example, you can never tell enough about one topic, which means also that when you're trying to define an issue, it's almost impossible to know all of the peculiarities of that issue. And so that's something to think about when you're trying to, you know, bring that forth. I think the other thing is that the majority of people in the West are, as you know, the psychiatrist Alfred Adler says, we're teleologically oriented, that we're future directed. That's not true of all cultures. And then the third, and I think the most important thing, is perspective consciousness. You know, that baggage that we have. We could have inherited it from our families. We could have gotten it from our education and early schooling. It could surround us because of what we like when we watch media. But I'm going to share real quickly an exercise that I used to do with my graduate students. And we would work off of this for quite some time. But I would just say, clear your mind, and you can all do this right now. Clear your mind of, you know, any sense of history that you might have, you know, all those history books, all of those films that you might have seen, and just allow yourself to write down the 10 first events that come to your mind in human history. And I can guarantee you that you can almost teach a whole course on those issues that people brought up, because that really reflects their position, their perspective consciousness about an issue, so that you begin the process of conversation and you say, how many of you have named events that come from a single person, like a Buddha or Jesus? How many of you have an event, your events are non, if you're dealing, and I've done this in Guatemala, I've done it in India, and I've done it certainly in the United States with students. How many of you have events that reflect colonization. Colonization by Western communities. How many of you have events that you have marked as coming from your own family tradition? How many of you have events that are coming from the collective action of people to try and bring about change? And it's incredible because then you get people to start talking in groups. And people, I once did this exercise with a group of young people who were going to go to India as exchange students to live for 1 year and study. And they had been together with the best Indian scholars and had spent 6 months studying for going for a year and did this exercise. And guess what? Very few of them put down in their 10 events anything that came out of India. And it's really, I mean, that's pretty overwhelming. And you think about how embedded we are with our own perspective, and what does it take in order to change that perspective. That's why I love the cognitive-based compassionate training, because it's really starting with you. I'd love for them to insert this kind of activity because, it also really helps people to break out of, the kinds of things that just are so much a part of how they revere their own wisdom. I mean, think about, that one of the biggest things in compassion training, or just the whole notion of compassion, is to question your own wisdom. Okay, now I'm sounding like my, one of my courses. So I'll stop. But I hope that we'll see you all in some other, but Paul, I really do hope that you'll get involved with Compassion in Australia, and Lacey, will see you in the healthcare, and Paul, we'll make certain that we change the time so you'll get a chance to at least experience it. And then if you like it, then we'll kind of put variation in the time for that. And then Terry, if you want to just kind of explore next steps. But
Can I ask what your name is?
I'm sorry. I'm Charter for Compassion. Didn't you know? I'm sorry I didn't change my name. My name's Marilyn Turkovich. Okay, I can even do the rewrite right now.
These are Compassion Wikipedia as well. So.
There you go.
Very nice to meet you,
Nice
everyone.
Yeah.
Have a good rest of your day.
Nice to meet you.
Speak soon.
Bye.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.